So y'all, I was just sitting here thinking, and sometimes these different topics pop up in my head, and I'm like, I just have to talk about it because someone may need to hear it. So I was thinking about this generation, like the younger generation, and how even with the older generation, but especially our generation, how a lot of marriages fail. And I believe why that is partially is because a lot of us think so selfishly. So you may feel like you're ready for marriage. You may feel like you're prepared. You're ready to jump into this thing. And a lot of times it is us ladies. Like a lot of times it's the ladies. And we have like this timeline in our heads. And if we don't meet that timeline, it feels like a failure. But what we have to realize is it's not just about us. You have to be prepared, but so does your significant other. So let's talk about that. When I look at successful marriages, and some of them being, so let me take it a step back. So when we hear these love stories, right? And we're like, they've only known each other for 6 months and they get married. And then years later, they're still married. They're still a functional married couple. A lot of us, we can look at that and say, like, how is that possible? How is it you can meet someone, only know them for 6 months, and then go on to have a healthy, successful marriage? But when you look at those couples and you're like, okay, they haven't known each other that long, right? But they're still able to have a successful marriage. I look at that, and when you see that, right, like even Sierra and Russell Wilson, they weren't courting for very long. They weren't dating for very long, right? But they both knew what they wanted, and they both were ready for marriage. And then you can look at other couples who have been together for 10 years. And you think, okay, they've been together for 10 years. They should be ready to settle down. They should be ready for marriage. And then they get married, and then it's a short-lived marriage. And you think, how is it they were together for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, however long? Some couples even longer than that. And then not even married for a year. And a lot of that is because, even though to me it sounds wild, like it sounds very crazy that you can be with someone for 10 years and you're still not ready for marriage, because there is no set timeline for that. Everyone's timeline is going to vary. So if you have person A who's ready, and then you have person B who's just, maybe they're just not mentally there. And even if it has been 10 years, person B is just not ready. Person A has been ready from the jump. They were ready 9 years ago. But then this person isn't ready. And then person A may be like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm ready to be married. And then they get married. And then it falls apart because person B was not ready. So I say all that to say, when we're looking for that person, aligning on, if they see marriage in their future, aligning on what it is that they require before they take that step is very crucial, you guys. For some people, for some men, for example, a lot of men will say, you know, they may have their dream woman, but they don't feel ready to provide financially for a family. That is a common response. Got a meeting in a few. But that is a common response, right? So you need to talk about that up front, because what you don't want is you're 2 years into this relationship, you're 3 years into this relationship, which is a reasonable time to start having those discussions about marriage, right? And then you're with someone and y'all are 3 years in, 4 years in, 5 years in, and they're still not ready. And then you're left to be confused. But really, there should be no confusion there, because you should know and set those expectations. Okay, what is it that you need to get there realistically? Now that it's about timing, because you don't want to rush into a marriage, of course. But realistically, what does that timeline look like? Are you, like, if you're ready for marriage, you may be ready to get married within the next year or two. If that person wants $100,000 in their savings account, they're like, that'll make me feel comfortable and confident to be a spouse. Then how long will that take? How long do you think that's going to take for that to happen? Oh, it could take me 10 more years. And you know you're ready in another year. Then y'all are not compatible. Or maybe ready at the current moment, but you're willing to, or okay with waiting another year or two, because of course you got to get to know each other and everything. And that person is okay with waiting 10 more years. That's not going to work. And what a lot of people will do when you see a lot of marriages falling apart is they know that they're with somebody that is just not ready, and they know how that person feels about them, and they leverage that to get what they want, marriage being that. And then they get in the marriage, and the person that wasn't ready, they compromise on something that is a life decision, right? That is such a huge deal. They compromise because they don't want to let this person go. And then they get in the marriage, and of course, marriage is going to have its own separate trials and tribulations. And so then that person's back is against the wall because they weren't ready anyway. They probably vocalized that to you, and you forced the issue, gave ultimatums, whatever it was, got what you want, but then it falls apart because that person was just never ready because you weren't compatible. So it all goes back to when you're thinking about it, right? You want to make sure, just a tidbit, right? I'm not married, so I'm just giving my perspective. Because when you're seeing a lot of this going on, not just talking about celebrities, but just the marriage rate and then the divorce rate, like just looking at the divorce rate, right, being so astronomically high, not even just in the US, but in other countries as well, you have to wonder why that is. And of course, like I said, there's a lot of reasons why that is. It could be unfaithfulness, it could be financially, which goes back to that person. Most likely the man wasn't prepared or wasn't ready, but the woman, a lot of times that's the case, ladies, was ready and forced the issue. Like you have that show, The Ultimatum, on Netflix. And you see that. And if that person is telling you what it is, you have to decide for yourself, okay, you want a successful marriage, because it's not just, the goal isn't just to get married. The goal is to stay married. So you want to make sure you're both in the right position for staying married. Not just getting married, not just having the wedding, not just doing all the festivities and, oh, I'm engaged and all that's exciting, right? But you want it to be something that's going to last forever. So waiting until y'all, if that's the person you want to be with, you have to practice patience, because, you know, like me as a Christian, right? I think, and I'm like, you know, it's not on my timing, it's on God's timing. And even if you're thinking like, oh, I'm ready, if the person you're with isn't, and God is still preparing them for that step, if this is the person you feel is for you, then you need to be patient. If you're like, now, like I said, if you ready within the next year or two, and they're ready the next 10 or 15 years, that's just extreme. That's an extreme situation. Even if you're like, this person for me, like, that's just doing too much. That's a whole nother situation. It's a whole nother topic for another time. But for real, y'all. And we look back in the day, right? People would get married, and it didn't take them long to get married, like 50 years ago. And a lot of that is they had a different mindset. They were prepared. They were ready. Both parties. Of course, there's different rule. There's exceptions to the rule, right? That's not always the case, but a lot of times that was the case. And nowadays, you have so much temptation. You have social media now. You have dating websites now. There's a lot of temptation at our fingertips. And so that is prolonging the process a lot of times. And then not only that, the cost of living is way, way, way higher. It's way more inflated than it was 50 years ago, right? You could have a blue collar job 50 years ago and take care of a family of 5, 6, and you were still comfortable. Versus now, that's not the case. So it's going to take people, especially men, longer to be prepared to be married financially because of the state that we're living in, at least in the United States. So when you're thinking about it, and when you're in that preparation period of becoming married, make sure you align with that person that you're wanting to be with forever, that they're also ready. And have a conversation. Don't be so quick to be defensive about it. Don't be so quick to, oh, you just don't want to be with me. Like, make sure it's a reasonable conversation. Have that conversation. Set those expectations really early on, because you don't want to wait 2-3 years. And like in my prior relationship, we had been together for 3 years. And I was like, I knew he was not financially stable. He wasn't ready, right? But I was. And I was ready to take that step, right? I knew he wasn't, but I was so like, I'm ready to take that step. And if I would have taken that step with that person, there's no way it would have been successful, because we were unequally yoked. But that's another example of just jumping into it, which a lot of people in our generation does, even though they know the other person is not ready. And then resentment builds, but you knew what it was from the get-go, really. And then I remember even in that last relationship, like having a conversation, because his brother took 10 years to propose to his, don't know if it's his wife now, but to his fiance at the time. And the person I was with, he was like, well, I'm okay with the timeline that my brother did. And I wasn't okay at the time with waiting 10, 15 more years. But we had never talked about it. We didn't have those conversations till 3 years in. And if you have those conversations from the get-go, you can really uncover if this is someone that you're actually compatible with, or if this is someone you're going to waste your time with. Because ladies, gentlemen, you do not want to ever feel like you're rushing somebody into something. You don't ever want to feel like you're forcing anything. You want that to be organic as possible. And you want to make sure that you're both ready when that time comes. But anyway, make sure y'all go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.